The train station smelled like wet concrete and old paper. People moved like ghosts wrapped in coats, tugging suitcases that whispered against the floor. Announcements blared above, distorted and half lost in the cold. She stood still in the middle of the crowd, the red scarf wound tight around her neck, a knot pressing against her throat like a secret she hadn't told yet. Her fingers were trembling. Not from the weather. The small suitcase by her side had one broken wheel and a peeling sticker of some beach she'd never seen. Her hand tightened on its handle. She didn't look back. She hadn't looked back since stepping off the cab 20 minutes ago. But her eyes searched. Across the platform, two lovers clung to each other like they were the last people alive. A child screamed somewhere. An old man dropped a coin and cursed at the wind. None of them noticed her. That was the point. She watched the train arrive, wind slapping against her coat, her hair brushing over her face like a veil. And for a second, just one breathless second, she imagined him standing there. Right at the edge of the platform, that familiar lean, smug posture. His hands deep in the pockets of the coat she bought him when they still slept in one bed. His eyes pretending to be soft when they never really were. But he wasn't there. Of course not. He was probably sitting behind his glossy desk at the company she built with her bare hands, writing emails, making calls, trying to scrub her fingerprints off the foundation like she was some accident. She could still feel the weight of the envelope he'd slid across their marble kitchen counter. The divorce papers had landed with a sound she still heard in her sleep. His voice was calm. "It's time," he'd said, like a closing bell or a funeral. Not a single thank you. Not a single flicker of guilt. She didn't cry then. She didn't scream. She signed quietly, slowly, like she was slicing something clean in two. But that was 6 weeks ago. Now she was standing here with everything she needed packed into one suitcase, a broken will dragging behind her like a wound. She reached into her coat pocket and touched the cracked silver watch she hadn't worn in years. It was his once. A gift. Back when time felt like a thing they shared. The glass was shattered now. Still ticked though. Some things keep going even after they break. The train doors opened. People surged forward. She didn't move. Somewhere inside her chest, something was uncoiling. This wasn't escape. It was execution. She hadn't just taken her clothes and memories when she left. She'd taken something else. Something he wouldn't realize was gone until the empire started to rot from the inside. She hadn't spoken a word to anyone. No dramatic goodbyes. No texts. Just vanishing, the way he thought she never could. A woman brushed past her, mumbling an apology. She blinked and looked up at the screen flashing the next city's name. It was time. But still, she waited. The scarf fluttered in the breeze like a warning. She closed her eyes. And then her phone vibrated once in her coat pocket. No name on the screen. Just a number she hadn't seen in months. Her heart stuttered. She didn't answer. Not yet. But her hand hovered. The wind picked up again. And something was coming. The train hissed. The doors waited. She didn't board the train. Not yet. Instead, she drifted back toward the bench beneath the flickering station clock, dragging the suitcase with that slow, limping wheel. The sound it made echoed louder now that the platform was emptier. The scarf had come loose, one end flapping wildly behind her like it wanted to leave before she did. She sat down, the suitcase parked beside her like a stubborn child. Her thumb found the edge of the cracked silver watch again, pressing it flat against her leg. It used to shine. Before the fall. Before the betrayal. Her father's voice surfaced in her mind, warm and gravelly, like the radio late at night, by something that lasts. Something you can pass on. She had bought it for her husband when his first pitch got funded. Back then, they were building everything together, every email, every sleepless night, every dollar counted. She remembered lying on the floor of their apartment, their laptops between them, bowls of instant noodles cold beside unread emails. She used to believe that kind of hunger meant love. Now the watch ticked on her wrist like a cruel reminder. She did pass it on, just not the way her father meant. Children ran down the platform, their parents trailing behind with tired eyes and outstretched arms. Laughter, breathless and sharp, filled the cold air. She watched a woman drop her bags just to hold her daughter. Watched a man kiss the forehead of someone he clearly hadn't seen in a while. No one was waiting for her. Her phone buzzed again. Same number. She stared at it until the screen dimmed. Her other hand clenched into her coat pocket, fingers brushing the frayed fabric of an envelope, one she hadn't opened yet. It wasn't from him. It was older. From a time when she was still trying. Still believing people change. A pair of shoes stepped into her peripheral vision. Polished leather. Slow, deliberate. She didn't look up right away. He didn't say anything. She glanced. A stranger, maybe 30-something, brown coat, holding a black coffee like it was the last warm thing in the world. He was watching her with that quiet, unreadable expression. Not pity. Something else. She wondered how broken she must look. Messy hair, raw eyes, suitcase that couldn't even roll right. But he didn't turn away. The scarf slipped again. She didn't fix it. I don't think I'm going, she said, not really to him. Not really to herself either. Just out loud, like testing the weight of the thought. He tilted his head slightly. Didn't answer. Just listened. The kind of silence that felt like space, not absence. And for a second, she wanted to tell him everything. About the empire she built. About the man who let her carry the whole thing until her back broke, and then handed her divorce papers like a receipt. About the way she hacked his calendar before leaving, deleting every meeting, canceling every investor dinner with polite lies. About the burner email accounts. About the quiet collapse she set into motion with surgical precision. But she didn't. The train hissed behind them. People surged forward again. One last wave. Doors about to close. She stood. Gripped the suitcase. The man didn't move, just sipped his coffee, watching. She hesitated at the edge of the platform, 1 foot over the yellow line. Her phone buzzed one last time. She looked back not at the man, but at the bench. At the red scarf lying across it like a shed skin. And for a moment, she didn't know whether to pick it up or leave it behind. The doors began to close. She stepped forward. Or did she? The scarf fluttered. The train roared. Someone was about to be left behind. The train was gone. The scarf stayed behind. She stood on the platform alone now, the suitcase at her heel like a stubborn memory. Rain began as a whisper on metal, then gathered strength until it poured in earnest. The station's roof leaked in spots, cold droplets tapping against the concrete in sync with her heartbeat. She didn't run for cover. Neither did he. The stranger was still there, leaning slightly against a post, coffee now empty, but held like it mattered. His coat was damp at the shoulders, but he didn't seem to care. She finally turned to him. You missed your train too? He smiled, faint. Didn't have one. Her eyes narrowed. So you just stood there? He shrugged. Seemed like you needed someone not to leave. Silence. Not soft this time, sharper. Waited. She looked away, wiping rain from her forehead with the back of her sleeve. The watch on her wrist blinked dully beneath the water. Still ticking. So what is it? She asked, half daring. You follow crying women through train stations for fun? He didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled something from his wallet, an old photo. Creased in the corners, faded. A girl in a graduation gown. Him beside her, younger, lighter. My sister, he said. Used to wait for me like that. Always wore a yellow raincoat. Hated goodbyes, so she pretended they never happened. She studied the photo. She still waitin'? A pause. No, he said softly. Not anymore. The rain shifted. Louder now. Somewhere distant, thunder rumbled like a warning. She felt something twist inside her. Like a thread being tugged. Not pity. Recognition. Her hand dropped to the suitcase handle, but she didn't move. I was building something, she said suddenly. Something real. For both of us. His gaze didn't move. Didn't blink. He told me I made it all about myself, she continued. That I didn't know how to be a partner. That I was too much. The man's lips parted slightly, but he said nothing. Just looked down at his shoes. The soles were worn near through. One lace was fraying, tied in a double knot like it had snapped once before. Invisible mirror. She swallowed. I gave him everything. And when it worked, when it got big, he made sure I was small again. Another roll of thunder. This one closer. The lights above flickered. You ever wonder, the man said slowly, if maybe the reason people leave is because they know they're not strong enough to stay? She met his eyes then. And it hit her how much sadness lived there quietly. Like furniture in a room he never left. She hated how much she understood that. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't look. What's stopping you? He asked. She thought of the empire, his name on the company, her code running beneath every surface. She thought of the investors she warned anonymously, the frozen accounts, the quiet death she had handed him like a wedding gift returned in fire. She thought of how easy it would be to disappear now. Let the whole thing crumble and walk away like a ghost. I'm not sure, she whispered. If I want to be done, or if I want him to know I'm the one who did it. Lightning cracked through the sky. For a moment, it lit them both in sharp white. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. The rain fell between them like a veil, thin but real. She picked up the red scarf from the bench. Held it in her hands like a question. Then she looked at him. And stayed. For now. The scarf was warm. But the storm was still coming. The storm had crawled closer. The rain no longer danced. It pressed down, heavy, soaking. It dripped from the rafters and pooled in cracks along the concrete, swallowing footprints as fast as they were made. She stood under a flickering light, the scarf clutched in her hand like a secret. The suitcase leaned beside her like it, too, was tired of waiting. He hadn't moved. Still beneath the post, coat darker with water now, hands buried deep in his pockets, the same quiet weight in his eyes. She wanted to leave. Every part of her screamed it, go now, before the ache in your ribs becomes something you can't name. So she did. Or tried. 1 foot forward, suitcase rolling behind, eyes fixed on the station exit. Her pulse thudded in her ears, like the sound of the paper landing on that kitchen counter all over again. But the weight of him behind her, not chasing, not calling, slowed her. That kind of silence didn't feel empty. It felt like surrender. She stopped. Turned around, slowly. And there he was. Sitting on the bench where she had waited, the red scarf now wrapped around his hand, not worn, just held. Something about it made her chest twist. Some people carry more than just bags. They carry silence. Regret. Ghosts they aren't ready to name. She walked back, each step heavier than the last. What are you doing with that? She asked softly. He looked down at the scarf. Didn't want the wind to take it. She didn't answer. Just sat down again, beside him, close but not touching. They watched people pass, hurrying with umbrellas, heads down, shoulders hunched. A woman gave them a brief, assessing glance. Long enough to mean something. Then kept walking. Judgment came quiet like that sometimes. Not in words. Just glances that said, you look like someone who stayed too long. Or left too late. I'm not who he thinks I am, she whispered. I didn't do this out of hate. He turned to her. Then what did you do it for? She stared at the rain. For myself. Because I was tired of being invisible in my own life. A boy passed them, holding his mother's hand. He looked up at her with eyes too wide, too honest. She looked away. I gave him my blueprint, she said. He took the credit and told me I was lucky to be standing next to him. Like I hadn't paved the road. Her voice broke then, just slightly. Enough that she caught her breath and held it. I didn't want revenge. I wanted proof. That I mattered. That it wasn't just him. A long silence. Then, without looking at her, he said, I used to build houses with my dad. Every summer. He'd hand me a hammer and say, don't worry about being strong. Just be precise. She looked at him. Rain trickled down his face, softening the sharpness there. He died before I got to finish one of them with him, he said. So I learned to build fast. And leave faster. She almost said something. But what? I know that feeling. No. Some grief isn't meant to be matched. Just witnessed. She reached out and gently took the scarf from his hand. I thought I lost this, she said. You didn't, he replied, voice low. It just changed hands for a while. Another flash of lightning. The station lights flickered again. The suitcase tipped slightly in the puddle, as if restless. She stood once more slowly. The scarf was around her neck now, not as tight this time. She looked down at him, her eyes tired but clear. You should go, she said. Not cold. Just finished. He looked up. And you? Her lips parted. Then closed. No answer. A pause. Then she turned one foot forward, then another, but this time, she didn't look back. Still, the scarf moved in the wind behind her, like it remembered. The bench was empty now, but the air still felt full. 2 days later, she stood outside a glass building with no name. Just steel, clouds, and a quiet kind of power. The scarf was still around her neck, dry now, a little wrinkled. She'd almost left it in the hotel room that morning. But something in her hand refused to let go. She'd applied for the job anonymously. A small division, product strategy. Something to tide her over while she planned her next move. The woman on the phone said they were impressed with her portfolio. Said the team lead wanted to meet her personally. She walked through the revolving door. The lobby was silence and marble, her suitcase replaced now by a slim black folder. She looked like someone starting over. Professional. Sharp. Empty. An assistant met her with a smile too clean to trust. Led her through hallways of glass and shadow. When they stopped at the meeting room, she paused. Her hand hovered over the handle. Inside, a man was already sitting, facing away. Her breath caught. Not because she recognized him, but because of what was sitting on the table beside him. The scarf. Folded neatly. And, beside it, his wallet. Open. A photo just visible. A girl in a yellow raincoat. No. Not a sister. Not from the way the photo was creased like it had been opened 1,000 times. Not from the way the edges were worn soft. She stepped inside slowly. He turned. The stranger. The same man who hadn't boarded the train. Who hadn't chased her. Who had held her silence like it was his own. Now in a tailored suit. Cleaner. Firmer. But the same eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. He gave a small nod. Not cold. Not smug. I wasn't supposed to be at the station that day, he said. But I go there sometimes. When the wait gets loud. Her mouth was dry. And the scarf. His eyes flicked to it. My daughter wore it once. On her last trip. She left it in my car. I kept it. The ache in her ribs snapped wide. He looked down. You dropped it? I thought maybe. It was better off in your hands now. Silence. I thought she was your sister, she said finally. She was everything, he replied. Her knees almost gave. Why am I here? He looked at her, really looked. Because we were going to offer you a position. Before I knew. Before I saw the name you used on your resume. Her alias. An old nickname only one person used to call her. Just be precise, her father had once said. A line she remembered now in a new voice, his echoing from the station bench. Time loop echo. You're him, she murmured. You're the one they talk about. The silent partner. The real founder. He nodded. And you're the woman who dismantled her husband's empire with perfect grace. One line of code at a time. Her chest burned. Are you here to finish what he started? No, he said. I'm here because I think you know how to finish what you started. And because I don't believe in ghosts. But I believe in consequences. She didn't breathe. Couldn't. Then he pushed a folder across the table. Open it, he said. Inside, her code. Modified. Improved. Expanded. Built into something she never imagined. And a contract. Her name, real this time, printed at the top. She was either walking back into the fire. Or stepping into something entirely new. But there was no going back. Not after this. She looked at the scarf. Then at the man. Then at the pen. And sat down. Outside, thunder rolled again. But this time, it felt like an anthem. The station smelled the same. Wet concrete. Distant echoes. Paper-thin announcements slicing through stale air. But she wasn't standing still this time. She was waiting. Not for escape, for confrontation. The scarf was gone. She had left it on his desk, folded with care, beside a single typed note. Some things aren't meant to be worn twice. Now, she stood where he once did, coat crisp, folder in hand, her name etched on the corner like it had always belonged there. She stared out across the platform, wind teasing the ends of her hair. Everything had changed. Except the ache. Footsteps behind her. Deliberate. Familiar. She turned. It wasn't her ex-husband. He wouldn't come. He never had the courage to face the ruins. It was him. The man from the bench. The one who hadn't followed, but had stayed. He walked slower now, as if the weight in his chest finally matched the weight in his eyes. She offered no smile. No greeting. Just space. He took it. You didn't sign the contract, he said quietly. I didn't have to, she replied. You already knew I wouldn't. A pause. A beat between heartbeats. Why not? Because I didn't come to be rescued, she said. And you weren't offering work. You were offering legacy. He looked at her then. Deeply. Not with charm. Not with intention. Just a man holding grief with both hands. You remind me of her, he said finally. She nodded. I figured. The final twist was quiet. But sharp. It wasn't love he had felt. It was recognition. A memory in motion. A second chance at saying something he'd never said the first time. I wanted to give you something, he said, reaching into his coat. She froze. Not fear, just the weight of finality. He handed her a box. Small. Wooden. Inside, the cracked silver watch. Still ticking. Still whole, even broken. Time doesn't fix anything, he said. But it helps you carry it. Her throat closed. It was yours, she whispered. It was hers, he corrected. And now it's yours. The loop had closed. The object she once clutched in pain now passed to her not as burden, but as offering. Not revenge. Not regret. Just release. She looked down at the watch. Slipped it onto her wrist. It was too loose. She didn't tighten it. I could have destroyed him completely, she said. Burned the rest down. Why didn't you? He asked. She exhaled. Because I didn't want to be a mirror of the man who erased me. I wanted to be more than an ending. And that was the rebirth. Not in fire. But in surrender. She glanced back at the tracks. A new train pulled in, doors opening with a sigh. Crowds moved around her again. A child ran to someone's arms. A man whispered something into a lover's ear. Same scene. Different girl. She turned to him one last time. I'm not staying. He didn't ask where she was going. Tell her thank you, she added, nodding to the watch. I will, he said. Every day. She stepped forward onto the train, no hesitation this time. As the doors closed behind her, she touched the watch face. It ticked. Not for what she'd lost, but for what she chose to carry.